It's Thanksgiving time, which can be tough if you're vegan, but I'm here to help. We are gonna make this delicious Thanksgiving loaf. It's basically a pot pie that's filled with all the fixins.
Oh my god.
I found this recipe from Hot for Food a few years ago, and I've made it for Friendsgiving, I've made it for Christmas, I've made it for Thanksgiving, I've made it multiple years because everyone's obsessed with it. It's so delicious. It's got all your favorite classic holiday flavors, totally vegan, and you're gonna learn how to make it today. Plus, your basic, everyday, delicious, I have these in the fridge, what do I do with them? How do you make mashed potatoes vegan? Only the easiest way ever. Plus, to top that off, and this delicious Thanksgiving main course, I have a gravy recipe that is just beyond easy and so yummy. You can add it to anything you want throughout the year to just have like an easy comfort food meal. So stay tuned to the end for that. We are about to get into vegan Thanksgiving. Description below for a shopping list of all the ingredients used in this recipe, plus the link to the original Hot for Food recipe that inspired it. My version is just slightly tweaked from hers. Also, you can find the link to my TikTok for that 15 seconds of inspiration when you don't have enough time to watch an entire recipe video. That was a lot of talking. Let's get to cooking. It takes about 20-30 minutes for the lentils to cook. You're gonna cook them until they're nice and tender. Most of the water is going to cook out of the lentils. There might still be a little bit left. Just drain it once they get to the consistency that you want them at. I like to peel off the outside layer because I think that's just how my mom taught me. I'll be using this to measure how much I cut up. This I have also seen available at Bed Bath & Beyond. I recommend if you're gonna use something like this, just don't make your chunks too big. Cup of onion, half cup of celery, and a half cup of carrot. 2 cups, perfect. Now that the lentils are done, we can cook the sweet potatoes in the same pot. I opted to not rinse the pot so I can get a little bit of that brothy flavor with the sweet potatoes because why not? Hot tip, if you press the knife down on it, you can break the skin off really easily. This is gonna add a lot of flavor. For the mushroom lentil meaty layer, I'm using portobello mushrooms, 3 caps, and just wipe them off with a cloth. And it doesn't really matter if you break the sides up like this because we're about to roughly chop them. And I say rough, I mean it. They do not have to be perfect. Nobody's gonna see them anyways since they'll be wrapped up inside of the delicious pot pie. So now it's time to boil the sweet potatoes. Potatoes are fork tender. It's been about 10 minutes. I'm gonna put them back in the same pot I had them in so I can mash them up in a minute. Using a small saucepan, we'll combine all the ingredients for the apple cranberry sauce. 1 cup of dried cranberries, a half cup of unsweetened applesauce, 3/4 cup of water, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, and the apple that we chopped up earlier. Once this comes to a boil, we'll bring it down to a low simmer. That's gonna simmer for about 20 minutes and then we'll let that cool. In the meantime, it's time to smash these sweet potatoes. So just using a regular masher, smash them in the pot that I cooked them in to save myself a dish. They're super soft from being boiled. And then rinse this off immediately because this stuff, if it dries on here, it's gonna be really hard to clean. Once the sweet potatoes are good and mashed, add 1/4 cup unsweetened original almond milk, or you could use another plant milk, as long as it's unsweetened. 1 tablespoon of vegan butter, 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, half a teaspoon sea salt, half a teaspoon garlic powder, half a teaspoon cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon allspice, 1/4 teaspoon black pepper, and now just gonna mix it well. Oh my gosh, it smells so much like fall, so much like Thanksgiving with those classic pumpkin pie spices. This apple cranberry sauce is done, so I am gonna leave this to cool. Now it's time for the mushroom lentil gravy layer. We're gonna start off by sauteing the carrot, onion, and celery that we cut up earlier in a little bit of vegetable broth. Oil is not necessary. Saute this for about 4 or 5 minutes with a little bit of vegetable broth. Just like a tablespoon or so. You want to saute this until it's mostly, but not entirely cooked through. This is a basic mirepoix, which is a French term for celery, onion, and carrot together, usually with herbs and olive oil. Add a 1/2 teaspoon black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of sage, 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. You can never get enough thyme, am I right? 1/2 teaspoon sea salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg. And then I'm gonna cook this for about another minute. After that, I'm gonna add those portobellos we chopped up earlier and cook for another 4 or 5 minutes. Add a little bit more vegetable broth as needed. These portobellos act as the meat of the dish. They are super hearty, and with the combined flavors of the celery, onion, carrots, spices, herbs, it really feels like a legitimate Thanksgiving main dish. We want to cook the mushrooms until they're mostly cooked, but not quite all the way. Now add 1 cup of those lentils we cooked earlier, and those 2 cloves of minced garlic. We're gonna cook this for another 2 or 3 minutes. We'll add 3/4 cup vegetable stock. We're gonna bring this to a simmer, and then we're gonna add a cornstarch slurry, combining 1 tablespoon of cornstarch with 1 tablespoon of water in a small bowl. Mix it up, and it becomes a thickening agent. It's gonna make this more of a gravy, meaty layer. Once it starts boiling, reduce the heat so it's at a nice constant simmer. Mix it until it thickens up, about 1 or 2 minutes. If you plan to bake it same day as you're making all of the filling, now would be the time to preheat the oven. We're gonna preheat the oven to 375 degrees. Grab the puff pastry out of the fridge. This one I buy comes in 2 sheets, so you're gonna roll it out and combine them together. The goal is to get 1 big piece that's about 17 inches wide by 12 inches height. Flour your rolling surface because you don't want this dough to stick because it is full of shortening, so it is gonna want to do that. What this is, it's layers of dough and shortening, and that's how it's so like fluffy and light and layery. It's just already put together for you. You can hand make this stuff, but it's just not a labor that I think is worth it. So it's already about 17 inches long like this. So I'm just gonna squish it together in the middle with my fingers first a little bit. I'm mostly gonna be rolling it out this way because I do need to add a couple inches this way. If you don't have a rolling pin, it's time to bring out an old wine bottle. This is pretty much the only time of year I bake, so I don't have a regular rolling pin. It's good to flip it so you keep it even. Cooking is a lot of trial and error. Use a knife to cut the puff pastry. You want to cut about 1/3 of the way over. This is gonna seal up your pot pie of sort. We're using a bread pan, just your basic loaf pan, and take a piece of parchment paper. I buy them in pre-cut sheets, and line it up and cut the ends off so that it fits down nicely in the pan. You want to have enough paper to fold over and cover the top. I cut like a couple inches down. This is really cool too because this is how you're going to lift the pot pie out of the pan. Take a little flour, hit the sides of the pan, layer in the dough, gently like tuck it into the corners. I like to save a little to make some little garnishes. Now that pot pie is ready for filling. First, add the sweet potato mash. Then add the mushroom, lentil, gravy, your meaty layer. The combination of these three flavors is so magical for Thanksgiving or for Christmas, for the holidays, any time of year where it's cold and you want something hearty and filling. I may have made exactly the right amount to fill this thing. Oh my goodness. Now delicately take that extra piece, place it on top. Take a fork and push down the edges. Pop this bad boy in the middle for 30 minutes. Now to go on the side, we're gonna make some mashed potatoes. Now we're gonna boil them just like we did the sweet potatoes in this big pot. While those are boiling, I'm gonna wipe down the mushrooms for the gravy that we'll be making to top everything off. I'm just using a washcloth with some hot water, just the same as with the portobellos. I'm wiping them instead of rinsing them so they don't get super slimy. 16 ounces of white button mushrooms, but you can use whatever mushrooms. I'm going to quickly slice the mushrooms with my mandolin. I have it on the 7mm thickness for the slices because the mushrooms will cook down. You want to cook the potatoes until they're fork tender. I'm going to use a hand mixer to mix or beat the potatoes into a mash. Time to add some other ingredients. This is done totally to taste. That's how I've done it since I was a little girl. This is the same recipe I grew up with basically, except we're swapping out some animal-based ingredients for plant-based ingredients. So we're doing some vegan butter, a tablespoon or so, and a little bit of unsweetened almond milk. Be very light on the milk because you can always add more, but you can't add less. Do a little bit of pepper, some salt, a little bit of garlic powder. Mix with the beater. And now it's time to check on the roast and see how it's doing. What we want is golden brown edges. When a fork is inserted, we want it to come out hot. It feels pretty hot to me. This beauty needs to cool in the pan for at least 20 minutes. In the meantime, we will take these mushrooms and turn them into the long-awaited for gravy recipe. In a pot, combine 2 cups of vegetable broth, 4 tablespoons liquid aminos or low sodium soy sauce. And mix it together evenly and bring it to a simmer. Plop in all those delightful shroomies. And these are gonna cook for about 10 minutes or so. The gravy also uses a cornstarch slurry, but a bit more, so it's gonna be 4 tablespoons of cornstarch with 4 tablespoons of water. Now that the mushrooms have cooked down, we're gonna whisk in the cornstarch slurry. Then we're also gonna whisk in 4 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast has B12.
Oh, yeah.
Also a teaspoon of basil. Just like the other dishes in this dish, you can make the gravy in advance as well. You can make it the day before, put it in a container, and then just put it back in a pot and turn the stove on, heat it up when you're ready to serve. Time to plate this masterpiece. This paper really makes it easy to get the loaf out of the pan when it's ready, and it also is meant to act as a cute little rustic serving decoration slash it helps cutting it and keeping the pieces together. I'm gonna start by putting a piece of twine down in this pan or baking dish. And I'm gonna take 2 sheets. I buy the pre-cut sheets, so I couldn't just cut a longer piece. And I'm gonna layer them like this, so that when I put the roast in, I have lots of extra paper to fold over. Elevate this sweet, sweet Thanksgiving vegan holiday delight. And we'll lower it down into here. Lovely. Tie a cute little bow around it. And we'll just fold this open. Now all that's left to do is cut this bad boy open and get a taste of it. And some gravy. Time to give this bad boy a taste. It's so good. It tastes like everything you've been missing from Thanksgiving, everything that you've been craving all year without any guilt. The mashed potatoes are they're so basic and classic, but it's just so nice, especially alongside like all of the flavor city that is going on here. It's like the cranberries are the perfect level of sweet and tart, and then the sweet potatoes with the pumpkin spices, the nutmeg and the cinnamon. It's just like, I'm like bubbling over with like fall excitement. Oh my gosh. Fall, Christmas, winter, anytime you want something vegan, just everything is wrapped together so perfectly in this. If you think you might like to try this recipe for your Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving Zoom call this winter, I hope you do, and I hope you shared it with me. If you enjoyed this recipe, subscribe to my channel. Follow me on TikTok for 15 seconds of inspiration. Bye, thanks for watching.